Mexican lesbians are so cool. I really wish they were real.
I didn't expect you
to say what?
Or to just be like... Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hand Me Down Podcast. We are your hosts. My name's Natalia.
And I'm Alan.
And we are super excited for yet again another episode. Today is going to be more of like a conversation regarding a movie. But before we get into that, we do our typical catch up, as well as diving into what's going on in our internet corner, trying to stay relevant with everything that's going on. And yeah, so like I said, we have a really good movie review / conversation lined up for you today.
Yeah, even if you haven't watched the movie or you don't plan to or anything, I think the conversations are still very much interesting conversations to have. So if you haven't seen it, don't turn away.
Yeah. So don't click off just yet, guys. But yeah, so we will be talking about a movie called Mosquita y Mari later on today. So if you've heard of it, slay. If you haven't heard of it, that's all right. You'll hear about it through this episode. But yeah, so with that, we'll go ahead and get into the episode. So as always, we catch up. Alan, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. I feel like we recently record. Are you mocking me?
My hands got really cold.
I felt myself and I saw you and I was like, girl.
I'm sorry. My fingers got really cold and I didn't know what to do.
I'll do another pose.
Okay.
Anyways, no. Yeah, this past weekend, we shot our first collab, which is going to be going out February 4th. Very excited about that. So we kind of already caught up. So I'm trying to think of stuff to tell you that I haven't yet. I went out with my cousins and my brother. My brother's back from Berkeley for winter break, and he had COVID. Well, first my dad had COVID, and then he had COVID. So he wasn't able to see the rest of my cousins like we usually do. But he tested negative, like right on my cousin Damien's birthday. So we went out to eat and we went out to the mall. And it was like, I missed going to the mall. Or like, we were in the mall because the restaurant was close to a mall. And it was like an hour wait. So we're like, let's go chill in the mall. And I haven't chilled in the mall like that since like high school, middle school. Did you guys do that?
Like being a mall rat?
Yeah, basically.
In middle school, it was always like, we don't know what to do. Like, let's hang out. Where do we go? The mall. And like,
and now they're dying. So it's just like, where the hell are we going to go? Now I got to go do hood rat shit because the mall is closing.
Are the malls
being
actually?
22.
How dare you? Where else am I supposed to get what's that pizza place called? Sbarro?
Yeah.
Where else am I supposed to get my Sbarro?
Where else am I supposed to go look at every single store and not buy anything and just buy a pretzel on the way out?
Exactly. Sometimes it's just a good little hot girl walk, like to window shop and like yearn for things that you can't afford. But are malls dying?
I believe so. Yeah, it's like they were really big in the 80s, aka Stranger Things season 3, season 2, one of them. I don't remember which one it was. And yeah, just because everything's going online, so they're losing a lot of businesses. They're becoming empty. I don't know. I mean, at least the mall in like my local mall, it's like, there's like no more stores left. It's so sad. Like all the Sears are closing, JCPenney's, stuff like that. Like all those department stores, which I feel like the department stores bring people in, and all the other little shops are there. Like they benefit from all the foot traffic, and now that the big stores aren't there anymore, the little stores can't function. It's just like a cycle. So.
Damn. Well, who's going to tell my local San Jose mall that just got redone?
Well, some malls are also doing good. I think like the bigger malls that get like a lot of foot traffic either way are doing good, but like the smaller ones aren't. But we went into a store that had like boots and shit, like botas, like cowboy vaquero boots, and they had hats, and I wore this one. If you guys should come you guys should watch the video episode, or we'll probably post this on our social medias. Follow us at Hand Me Down Pod on TikTok and Instagram. But this is the picture. Damien, my cousin, said I look like Speedy Gonzalez. Shirt over here.
That's very good.
But yeah, Albert, my brother, he tried on a hat and he looked really good in it. But obviously this one's a little funky, but yeah.
Did you try on only that one?
Only that one.
You were like, let's see. You.
Yeah.
Dang.
It just, called me.
It spoke to you.
Yeah.
It just looks like you're about to go get brunch with the girl.
I think it was a girl hat. I think it was in the girl section, but I was like, I haven't seen a hat like this. I'm wearing it.
That's a girl's hat.
It looked good. It was a statement piece,
And it matched your outfit. It did. It did. It looked like a cohesive outfit.
Thank you.
You should have caught.
I almost walked out of there if it wasn't $100 and something, but
we should have done a poll, copper drop. Should Alan buy this? I should have.
But how are you?
I'm good. I feel like I have been wanting to go thrifting forever. Like I feel like the last time I went thrifting, I kid you not, was to look for things around graduation time. Damn. Like around like May, June, like
6-7 months.
Yeah. So I feel like thrifting was a really big part of my college experience. Back in college, I thrifted a lot. But it's also like really fun to like go out and try to like explore with different types of fashion. Obviously, you're going to get fashion that's like quote unquote outdated or like from the past times and stuff like that. And I really liked thrifting. I would get a lot of anxiety in all of the other stores, but for some reason in that Goodwill, I was at peace. At that Goodwill.
Which one?
Just any Goodwill.
Oh. Not sponsored, but
Not
yes.
sponsored. Or at any thrift store, I was like, what's that called? Nirvana.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I am just, the reason why I haven't been able to go thrifting is obviously like I literally don't have the money for it. Because we do talk about being unemployed, but I don't know. Should we give an update? Should
we make an announcement?
Should we a little announcement coming up? So I might be able to thrift soon.
Yay!
That's my announcement.
Natalia might be able to thrift soon, and we're all very happy for her.
Yeah.
Many people did not see this coming, but it happened.
And I'll post the. She's
gonna thrift.
Yeah. Hopefully by the next episode I'll have a fire ass new fit. Maybe I'll add in a hat. And if the hat's too big for the headphones, I'll cut holes through it so that the headphones fit.
Beautiful.
That's my announcement. Is I might be able to thrift soon. So wink. That was a really bad wink. I'm also just really bad at winking. If you guys haven't noticed.
Yeah. I mean, one thing about Natalia and I is that we tend to do things together a lot. And it's so funny how things just happen. We're not working at the same place, or we're employed now. Yeah. As of today. I haven't even done any of the paperwork, but as of today, we're working in the same place, but not physically. I don't know.
Same company, different location.
Yes. But we have money, or we're going to have money soon. So
yay.
Let's hear that one more time.
Jesus Christ. And I feel like we have like a future episode dedicated completely to like the route that we're taking post-grad.
Yeah.
So for the time being, that's what we'll say. Obviously, we're not going to say the name or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel a little bit of relief. I'm not going to lie.
Me too.
I feel like there's going to be a little bit more structure to my day-to-day life, which not having structure was really hard.
Yeah. And thankfully we can still bring these episodes to you guys and, also be financially,
maybe we'll replace, one of my lights went out. So if you notice the background is not as purple, it's because she died. Yeah. So maybe we'll buy a new one with the check.
New era, but we're glad to be doing this. So good update. I forgot that happened. It happened to me like literally as we were setting up. I got a call, so I was like,
I was right here. I was like, yeah, dude.
So it's funny. All right. Anyways, anything else? New Year's resolutions? We didn't really. We had a whole New Year's episode, and
we never talked about resolutions. My resolution was honestly relating to thrifting. Was just like literally just explore more clothes.
Thrift more. Live, laugh, thrift.
Live, laugh, thrift. buying the shitty shirts that you see at the thrift store, because why not? Who else is gonna buy that? Like, I want just some.
You're doing big things for the ugly shirt community.
I see you. I hear you. I am one of you. Representation matters. But I love ridiculous shirts. I feel like I always come across them and I don't buy them. And you know, the stupider the better. And sometimes they're pajama shirts, but what if I get brave enough and wear them out? Imagine.
Yes, praise, go off. I feel like a robot. Go off.
Yes, praise, go. That's like the dogs that like are like treat, walk.
Oh, the fucking sentient dogs.
Is that
Yeah, like Bunny.
Yeah. Bunny the
like
dog.
Bunny would be like, "Why I have feelings," and we're like, "Bruh, you're getting hella smart."
You my mama? I'm like, holy shit, dude.
You guys have no idea what we're talking about. Search up Bunny the dog on TikTok. They communicate through like buttons, like so they speak. Crazy shit. Anyway, that's bleeding us into Internet Corner.
Yes.
That was like an old thing. Like not a trend, but like an old thing that was
like
happening on the internet.
Yeah, like a viral video.
Like 2 years ago, maybe.
COVID, I feel like it was.
COVID got there.
Yeah, because it was around the time where we got my dog, and I was like, why can't you do that? Useless. Just kidding. I love my
sorry,
dog.
I dumb.
The poor dog.
Yeah, your poor dog.
Just kidding. Anybody who knows me knows I love my dog.
We'll put a picture up right here.
There he is. But yeah, so the next segment is Internet Corner, and we talk about the trending things, the relevant things. So the one that I saw is the one that I chose was because it was kind of like relevant. Was the Alaska Airlines plane. Have you seen that?
I did, yeah.
That shit was crazy. I think because it happened during like a busy season.
Travel season. Yeah, holiday season.
And I had just finished traveling on plane like right after that happened.
Was it Alaska or Volaris?
My airline?
Yeah.
I flew Volaris.
Okay. Volaris may have a lot of problems, but it doesn't have these problems.
Yeah, at least the fucking door stayed on the whole time.
But yeah, go ahead. Explain it to anyone who doesn't know what this is.
Yeah, so if you haven't been like following the news, there was a plane on Alaska Airlines where part of the plane literally just popped off in the middle of the flight, like while they were already in the air. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but it was a situation in which the gas mask had to be dropped and people had to like put them over their face and stuff. And so I've been getting a lot of TikToks of people who were like on the plane, like explaining what that experience was like. And I was like, new fear unlocked, first of all. And it was just like they had to do an emergency landing and just like tend to everything. And it's like some Mission Impossible shit that like
the landing. I haven't looked that much into it, but
the landing, from the people that I saw on my TikTok that were on the plane, they hadn't taken off too far from the airport, so they were able to turn around and go back to the airport. But like that is insane. And like I had been on an airplane like before flying Volaris, but I was scared to fly Volaris because I was scared that they were gonna overbook the plane because we flew on Christmas Eve.
I see.
But no, because when we were flying Volaris, we had really bad turbulence. That's what it's called, right? Where literally like all of us froze and was just like, oh, and like at one point the plane literally dropped for like a good 3 seconds, and then I was sitting next to my tia and I was like, well, like,
this is it, tia. Like, let me look into your eyes as we fall.
And no, but the plane had gone through the turbulence when the flight attendants were bringing the carrito, like to give you food. Snacks. And so it fell so hard and so suddenly that it fell on top of one of the flight attendants, and she like twisted her ankle and she was out the rest of the flight. Like she couldn't like attend to anybody or anything like that. And like she was just in the back crying, and like nobody knew what to do because like poor thing could not walk. Like that whole cart just fell on her. And I was like, oh my God. And then another flight attendant got hurt too. The girl that was on the other side, she had fallen and she also got hurt too. And I was like, everybody was being so nosy and just like looking towards the back of the plane.
Yeah, you told us to wear our seatbelts.
It says fasten seatbelts, girl.
You yelled at me for not fastening my seatbelt. Look what happened to you. No, I'm just kidding. Poor thing.
Yeah, that was so sad because it was like we were sitting towards the back of the plane, so we kind of like heard everything, but like my family was in different rows, so like my parents were behind me, so I kept looking back and I was like, what's going on? And my dad was trying to mouth things to me, but I can't read lips. And then so my sister in front of me,
I don't speak lips, mister.
She was looking at me. She was just like, what's going on? And I was like, and she also can't read lips. We just had to wait until the end of the plane.
You guys didn't take lip reading classes in school?
We didn't. I should have taken that, and I should have taken a business class. But yeah, so planes, scary lately.
Yeah, planes have not had a good rap lately. Did you see the thing in Japan where the plane, I believe it was New Year's Day, where the plane was landing in Japan and it like caught on fire like as it was landing.
What?
Yeah.
I did not hear about that.
Or it might have been like the second day, but like Japan also had it tough, like an earthquake, I think the first day of the year, and then like the second day was that thing with the airplane. Yeah. If you guys can avoid flying. I mean, we don't mean to scare you, obviously. You're more likely to die in a car than in a plane crash. So
yeah.
But anyways,
it's just crazy that all that's happening like right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my internet corner.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot for internet corner. I'm not even sure if I want to mention this, but
That's
North Sea Tik Tok, the yo ho. It's just like there's these like videos of just like the ocean. I don't know if like the fear of the ocean. I don't know what phobia that is or what it's called, but like fear of the ocean. Was it? Thalassophobia is a fear of the ocean, but it's just like these videos of like really big waves or like a ship like whoosh, going through the waves and just like trying to get like that fear out of you of like storms and like the ocean or whatever. And they always use the sound of this like that's why it's called like North Sea, because it's like a shanty or whatever, like a yo ho ho, and everybody's been making fun of it. But yeah, like I got a clip last time where it was like a scene from Godzilla where it's like this ship like turning over, but like they stop it right before you can see Godzilla, but like I could see it a little bit. I'm like, that's from a movie. What are you doing trying to scare me like that? And I guess just because of like, did you see like the big ass waves in California? Like the tsunamis and shit? Like that all like correlated around the same time. So
damn,
that's the no.
Damn, people should start making edits to like movies that involve water but are like not supposed to be scary.
Waterworld.
Like Flushed Away.
Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is scary if you're a dad.
But damn, I haven't been on that side of TikTok, but you know, the sea.
Hopefully this clip makes it. But with that, I think we're nearing the end of Internet Corner. And before we move on to the discussion of Mosquita and Mari, let's go ahead and do some housekeeping real quick. If you are listening on the podcast platform, go ahead and give us a review or give us 5 stars. It'll help us out. It helps us push us out in the algorithm, and it is you truly supporting the podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. Again, that also helps us a lot. Show your support that way. We've been getting a lot of comments recently on some of the episodes, so we love hearing from you guys. Thank you so much for doing so. And if you don't do any of that, go ahead and follow us on our social media at HandMeDownPod on TikTok and on Instagram. If you miss an episode, don't sweat it, because we post the best highlights on our social media. Plus, we also post any other information that you might need for the podcast. We always, if we review a movie, we always try to give you like a heads up, like, hey, maybe try to watch this before the episode. You'll enjoy it more. You'll still enjoy it if you don't watch it, but if you want to enjoy it a lot more, watch this movie. It's kind of like homework that we give you guys. But you also get to see like the pictures that we talk about if you are an audio listener. So go ahead and follow us on there at Hand Me Down Pod. And thank you guys so much for listening. Oh, and we also have a Discord, which no one has joined yet. I'm like, bruh.
We haven't posted it on our story or anything.
I know.
It's like, guys, we haven't marketed it.
Join the Discord. It's a great way to just like chat. You know, if you guys ever wanted to be like in a big ass group chat, with Natalia and I and Milena. Like, that's the perfect way to do it. So, yeah, Discord, link in the bio.
Send your best memes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. And with that, let's get into the rest of the episode.
All right. So I believe that this conversation that we're going to have about the movie is going to be pretty free of spoilers.
Yes.
If there is an instance where we have to give like a major spoiler, obviously we will say that first. But if you have not watched the movie that we're going to talk about, we highly recommend it. Unfortunately, it's not available on any streaming services. It is one that you have to rent. So you do have to pay money to watch it, but it is an incredible movie. So if you have been eyeing this movie, or maybe if this is your first time hearing about it, we definitely highly recommend that you check it out.
Yes, I know we are used to getting shit for free on streaming services and on YouTube, but there was a time where we used to pay for renting movies or buying them, especially a movie like this that is very independent. Your money isn't going to like a big studio or anything. It's going to the actual filmmakers of this movie. So that's why I had no problem dropping like $4.
Like $4, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Or you can go on 1, 2, 3 movies, but you didn't hear that from me.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting into it, we will be talking about the 2012 movie called Mosquita y Mari. And so this one is very near and dear to my heart as well, not only for the topics that it talks about, but also upon doing research for the episode, I learned a lot about how this particular movie was made, and it just made me grow so much respect for it. Like I was just like, oh wow, like they had a dream and they went for it, and like nothing, although things seemed like it wasn't going to go their way, they just like persevered regardless.
Yeah, you said that you have a fondness for it because of the themes. I think I very much enjoy the themes too, but also the director is from San Francisco, from the Bay.
She is.
Went to Berkeley, I believe.
I think she went to Berkeley for undergrad and then did Cal State LA, I want to say. Or a school out here in LA.
For grad.
Yeah.
And this movie takes place in Southeast Los Angeles. SELA. It takes place in Huntington Park, somewhere where I grew up very, very often. And it's great to see it, to see it portrayed this way. But do we want to go ahead and give a quick rundown of the plot?
Yeah, so the plot is, it follows two Southeast Los Angeles Chicana high schoolers with different priorities and understandings of the world, and they form a friendship that will eventually blur the lines between platonic and romantic, which I feel like is a universal experience for anybody that identifies as queer. So it's a movie that felt very real, and it felt very honest, and at times, like it honestly felt very sweet too. But it wasn't I don't know. Would you call this a romance? No, right? Because they don't necessarily cross that line ever.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't know how to explain it. I mean, I don't know if we want to get into characters first or first impressions.
Maybe we'll do first impressions.
Okay.
And then before we get into first impressions, this movie premiered at Sundance in 2012, which is a really big deal for those in the filmmaking community. So it's definitely been awarded, like it's gotten its what's that called? Festival run.
Yeah.
But yeah, so first impressions. I've been wanting to know what you thought about it.
Yeah. I think you covered a lot of what I wanted to say, which is that it felt so real and authentic. It felt so raw. You know, in many times, many movies, different movies are exaggerated, or they're kind of like made in not realistic ways, but ways that are still artistic and that are still, sometimes dialogue, it's not written the way that people actually talk, but it's written in a way that is nice to hear in a movie. But this was, it was just so raw. And I also read a little bit about the making of it. But maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself. Anyways, it lets us breathe. The movie lets us breathe in a lot of these moments that are very beautifully shot. And it really helps convey that like friendship and like getting close to someone through these intimate moments that they share alone. let me see what else. It's very character driven, which is something that I really enjoy in a script, in a movie. The characters drive the plot. Their actions cause a plot to go forward instead of just random stuff happening to them. Their actions have consequences and they have to deal with those consequences. And it's the way that they choose to deal with those consequences that drives the story forward. And then just nostalgia for me. Again, this was shot in probably 2010, 2011 in Huntington Park. So just that, it felt so raw. It felt like I was there, because I was there during that time, obviously. But it was really well done. It felt like not even just I don't know how to explain it, that it's nostalgic and that it's real, because even just like the cinematography and just the way that it's shot is very real. Like, it doesn't look like a Hollywood movie, and I don't think it's meant to. It feels like someone picked up a camera and just took it around.
Yeah.
In Huntington Park.
Yeah. That's one thing that I noticed about it too. I think, so I have actually watched this movie twice.
I thought you hadn't watched it.
No, I told you that I liked it. I had watched it and I liked it, and that we should talk about it.
I think you're right, yeah.
He doesn't listen to women. So I think the circumstances in which I had watched this movie are pretty interesting. The first time that I had watched it, I was closeted. Ooh, like, well, throwback.
How did you find out about it?
I feel when I was dealing with my shit, I often turned to different types of representation about queerness. So a lot of, for me, it was like YouTubers. So like YouTubers, I would talk about the queer experience and stuff like that, and just like trying to latch onto something as I was trying to figure things out. And I think I came across this movie, I want to say it was like free on YouTube. Like the YouTube algorithm pushed it out because I had been like looking, right?
Your recent search history.
Gay? Question mark.
LGBTQ plus. Am I gay? Am I gay? Quiz. Girls kissing.
Delete. So I think it was literally YouTube was like, "You're gay," and I was like, they're like, "You be looking around and shit." So they kind of like, it was free on YouTube when I had watched it. So they had like pushed that out into my algorithm, and the title was in Spanish, and I was like, oh well, like let's just give it a try. And so I had like watched it, and I felt like I was like, that was like my introduction to like queer, or that's the first time I saw like queer Latina representation about the pre-coming out phase, like before you even like are comfortable being yourself. So it felt like something that was very real during a time where I was literally going through similar things. So high school, literally high school. I was at my grandma's house. And then so I had watched it then, and I remembered feeling like also confused as like, is this a romance or not? Like, blah, 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 like also trying to analyze it, like, but now that I watched it a second time, now that, I'm a bit more comfortable with my, the way that I identify, I am able to appreciate the fact that it's not a romance and that it is meant to be that like pre coming out, like the friendships that are very weirdly sexually charged, but like nobody says anything about it. And it's just like, because I feel like you can ask a majority, any queer person that and ask them if they had a friendship like this, and 9 times out of 10 they'll tell you yes. But yeah, so that was my first impression, and then my second impression was just appreciating the fact that it's not a romance. This movie deals with a lot of themes, and obviously it is it deals a lot with queer experience, but also immigration, first gen experience, undocumented experience, and I think it tackles all of those beautifully. And I feel like if you're a fan of the podcast, that we hate it when movies like hit you over the head with like the message. This one says stuff
with very little, and you know
Subtly.
exactly what it is, especially if you come from these communities, especially if you like have gone through this stuff, you know exactly what's going on. And that's what I really liked about it.
Yeah, and I feel like once we go into like kind of like the lore of the filmmaker's name is Aurora Guerrero, we'll touch upon that a little bit more, because that was a really important element in creating this film for that filmmaker. But before we go into that, let's introduce the characters. I feel like we've talked a lot about the movie, but we haven't really talked about the characters. So do you want to go into that?
Yes, you beautifully wrote this right here. Our main character or protagonist is called Yoli, also known as Mosquita. She's the only child of immigrant parents who have sacrificed a lot to provide for her. Yoli's priorities lie in being a successful student on track for a college education. That's a great synopsis or description of her character. And her nickname Mosquita is given by
Mari. So Mari is our other character in this movie, and Mari is Yoli's new neighbor. She's kind of this streetwise eldest daughter of an undocumented family, and she struggles to find ways to help financially support her family. So that's kind of like her role in being the eldest daughter of her family, trying to find ways to deal with the economic crisis that they find themselves in. But yeah, so,
how do they become friends, Natalia?
Yes, I'm glad you asked, Alan. So they become friends, quote unquote friends. And I'm just gonna read straight from the Sundance synopsis. I found like a little Sundance what they gave the people that went to Sundance. But it says, Mari is threatened with expulsion after saving Yolanda from an incident at school. And so determined to call it even, Yolanda convinces Mari to let her tutor her after school to prove the administrators that she is not a delinquent. So that's kind of how they became friends, is just like Yolanda kind of like sees her as this figure and tries to like pour the information that Yolanda has internalized, which is college equals success equals good life. And she's trying to like put that onto Mari, who very much sees it as the opposite, or like very much doesn't really think about that.
Yeah. And one of the notes that I had taken while watching this is that Yoli has a very good way of explaining things to Mari in a way that she understands it.
That's true.
Because I feel like not a lot of people understand this experience, like the people who are going through it with you. And although they are very different, there are different experiences for Yoli and Mari. It's a lot closer. Like, and you see it throughout the rest of the film. Like the parents don't understand. The parents have this certain mentality, but I think she sees things differently, and she's helping Mari see it in that way too. Yeah,
and I think that's what's so beautiful about this specific friendship, in that they are so different from each other, but they like mix so well. I feel like each of them teaches each other something different. I think there's this one line, I'm forgetting where in the movie it happens, but it's when Yoli's trying to convince Mari that all she needs to do is like keep studying and like things will work out. And Mari says something along the lines of like, that's not all I am, or like, that's not everything to me. Like it kind of like implying like, that's not everything to me like it is to you. Our realities are very different. But it wasn't said in a way that was like, she didn't bark about it. Like, but it was just kind of like telling her like, that's not my reality. And I feel like that kind of opened Yoli up to different possibilities, because I feel like the whole movie is also about Yoli trying to find where she fits in this world. She's very much in the in-between. So let's go ahead and talk about the themes. Natalia, you beautifully wrote down 5 themes here. Do you want to give them shout outs? Should I just like list them all and then we'll go one by one? Just list them and then we'll go on. So the themes that this movie deals with is friendship, family, self-exploration, money / quote unquote success, and queerness. So tackling the first one, friendship. I feel like very early on we are introduced to the importance of friends in this community. We are introduced to the world of high school girls in Southeast LA, and we see these 2 girls who are known as Las Cuatas, and they're like twins who are friends with Yoli, but are very much the opposite of what she kind of like values, or not values. What would you call that?
Like her beliefs, or
kind of.
Yeah.
Where Yoli, like we mentioned before,
Lifestyles.
Yeah, is very much like study, versus her friends or the people that she's closest to are very much like party, social. They're very boy crazy, which I loved that detail. I loved that her best friends were boy crazy, because it just like also brings out how awkward Yoli is around that concept. Because I remember feeling like that. My friends were boy band crazy growing up, and I was just like yeah, he's cute, sure.
And I feel like there's multiple scenes where they like, that's the purpose of the scene, and they just let it breathe and let us sit with that kind of awkwardness, and we feel it. We're like, yeah, but she's not,
like she sticks out like a sore
thumb, and she can't say anything, and she's just and
the friends are very much throughout the whole movie trying to get her to conform to like that lifestyle, because it is like the pressures of society as well to like be like,
and I don't think it's like ignorant on their part. I think it's just like that's the norm to like boys, so they're just like, well, come on, like do it,
but yeah, so we start off knowing that friendship, but however the theme of friendship also gets explored through the friendship between Yoli and Mari. So their specific friendship is a friendship that kind of deals with blurred boundaries where things get into very confusing territories, and so this friendship is one that has very unspoken romantic tensions. It's very much an attitude of like they both feel it, they both know it, but they don't want to deal with it, so they don't talk about it, and so as a result you suppress and you suppress and you suppress, and the way that you express that frustration is through jealousy, being very petty towards one another when like the other would be preoccupied with like, say, a boy or like something. They would get really jealous really fast. And the whole time while watching it, Milena and I were making jokes, and we were just like, that's normal, right? Like, I get so jealous when my friend hangs out with the boy because we're just friends. But so it kind of like really explores that. And
and I think one of the things that it does well that it doesn't shy away from is like the quote unquote toxicity of what it's like to have these feelings in high school, where you're still learning boundaries and you're still learning how to communicate with one another. Like some of the stuff that they were doing was very toxic. Like as soon as something happened, they knew exactly what to do to get the other person to bite or to come back or to do this or to that. And they don't shy away from it. And I feel like that's one of the conversations that we've had, which is like, bad representation. Like these aren't bad characters. It's just like, it just doesn't shy away from like that happens in real life, and like it's okay for it to happen. And I mean, in a perfect world it wouldn't happen, but like this film is so real in so many ways, and I think that was also a really good example of it.
Yeah, definitely like guilting each other a lot. I was like, damn girl, just talk about it. Just kidding. No, I would have not fucking talked about that.
But it makes sense. Like first of all, teenagers talking about that, and then second of all, like about queerness, like something that is like quote unquote forbidden that you're not supposed to do. It's like that makes it 10 times harder to have this conversation.
So just like the things that they would do to, like you say, get the other one to like bite and like latch on and stuff like that, felt very real.
That's all I have to say about
that. That's all I have to say about that.
But they're kids. It's gonna happen. It sucks, but I mean that's how you learn and you move on. And it was just really interesting to see it like play out. I feel like as people who write stories, sometimes you just want your characters to be perfect, and this was a perfect example that they're not.
Like they're complex, and that's what makes them interesting and real. So moving on, the next theme is family. So I feel like the movie does a good job of subtly feeding you the idea of like that each girl's priorities are shaped by what has or is currently being demanded by their families. So there's this quote, or I feel like, okay, should we explain like the different families that they come from?
Yeah, let's go ahead and explain some families.
Okay, so Yolanda's family is their immigrant parents who have sacrificed a lot, like we said, to get her to where she is. And as a result of doing that, they have like lost a lot of touch of like what they love to do. And the film kind of like
they're in survival mode.
Yeah, they're in survival mode very much. And the film kind of like goes into that with the idea of like dancing or like the dad's hat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so Yolanda's very much she sees her parents that they miss that lifestyle, but you know they
can't afford it.
Yeah, they think that they
literally can't afford it.
Yeah, they can't have both. So there's this thing that they tell Yolanda when they're scolding her about something, and they tell her, don't lose sight of what's in front of you. And she kind of like says, I won't lose sight. And then she mumbles to herself like you guys did or something. Mm-hmm. And I felt so bad. Like I was like, oh man.
Yeah. And like that's one of the things that this movie tackles without specifically saying it, is that as someone who's first generation, who your parents are immigrants and they sacrificed a lot, you know, they sacrificed a lot and you can't help but feel guilty for it. And I think that's what that scene is saying is like, you guys are like, I want, like, you guys, I know you guys gave up on your dream, but like, don't put that on me. And like, she still wants to go to college. She still wants to do it for her own reasons, but like, don't put that, I have to do it because you guys sacrificed all this. Like, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like she also feels, I'm blanking out on the word, where it's not petty, but it's like, pity. Is that it? Like she pities her parents and that they gave up so much, because I think she tries to get them to like indulge in these things that used to make them happy, but they just like won't.
Yeah, I put Yoli and her mom dancing. There's a scene where Yoli puts her dad's hat on her mom because they had told a story about her mom and her dad dancing, and that it was a very sweet moment that felt like a family. So she tries to recreate it with her mom. She puts her dad's hat on her mom, and her mom starts dancing. And I was like, "Oh, the mom is so cute." And then she has the mom has a moment of self-reflection, literally looking at the mirror. She looks at herself and she's like, I can't do this right now. Yeah. Snaps, goes back, and she's like, no, put this hat back. Yeah. We're done with this. Yeah. Let's go. So like, very quick, I was writing notes and I was like, the mom is so cute. And then I was like, never mind.
Never mind. Like it literally is that attitude of like no time to waste, kind of like, I mean, for lack of better terms, like no lollygagging, like no dilly-dallying allowed. Yeah. So yeah, that was a very prominent moment in the movie. So very quickly explaining Mari's family. So for Mari's family, she comes from single mom that's raising two girls. And so the mom is very much on survival mode in that they're just trying to financially stay afloat. And in order to do that, like she literally has to she doesn't really seek out the help of Mari, but Mari kind of takes on that role of like, of doing it without being asked because she knows that it needs to get done.
She's the oldest daughter. So like that trope of like just taking on a lot of it to help parents. She does that without, like you said, without having to be asked. And the thing is that the mom doesn't say no to the money. Yeah. She takes it.
Yeah, she does.
And it's a very interesting way that they do that. Mari never gives the mom the money directly. She always leaves it in the drawer and then the mom gets it from the drawer. Yeah. They never do it face to face. It's like a transaction, like it's very interesting detail.
Yeah, very interesting handoff of the money. Like they don't have to confront each other about it. They just know that it happens.
And they're all undocumented.
Yes.
Yeah. Mari's also undocumented. I believe she has a green card. There was a quote where she said that, but that also just adds more to the dynamic of that. But yeah. Yeah. That's it for the families.
Yeah.
Next theme is self-exploration.
Yeah. So very, very much a coming of age movie. The girls are, I don't remember if we mentioned it before, but they're 15. So they're very young girls. And in their journey of self-exploration, they kind of start to decide for themselves what rules to follow. This in the sense of like Yoli deciding if she wants to follow the rules of being a good student and like, or if she wants to follow more to be more in that, like that social circle aspect of high school. And then Mari decides like, also sacrificing some things at work to like nurture her friendship with Yoli.
Quote unquote, yeah.
Quote unquote friendship. So those are just like some of the things that they explore. But the biggest quote unquote rule of them all that is never explicitly mentioned is like, and we'll talk about it later, but queerness. It's never explicitly mentioned that it's a bad thing or that it's like looked down upon. But that was one thing that I noticed the second time watching it, was that there was no antagonistic force.
There wasn't no looming. The energy was looming, but it wasn't like personified in any way or form.
Yeah. So that was just like one of the ways in which they were able to start to explore themselves a little bit more and how they fit into this world specifically that the director created, that doesn't necessarily tackle that head on, but there's subtle moments with we mentioned the friends Las Cuatas where they like look at the girls and they just make a face and like that they know, or like the mom has kind of like a light bulb moment where she starts to suspect, but nothing is ever said explicitly about it, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah,
it is. And I think the fact that it really immerses itself in this Latino community, and I feel like no matter what, it's always going to be in that Latino community. I mean, at least during this time, hopefully it gets better, obviously, but during this time, like, it's always just going to be there.
Yeah.
You don't even have to say it.
Yeah.
It does such a good job at putting you in this community that you don't even have to say it.
Yeah. And that's a really big thing. I feel like lore.
Go ahead.
My lore. When I was, coming to terms with my sexuality, I used to write poems. Whoopsie.
She's a poet. She doesn't even know it.
One of the things that I would write about is the fact that nobody talks about it. And like the fact that being so avoidant created, because there was the concept of it being a sin, and like the sin is a bad thing, but there's not talking about it, and the fact that it wasn't talked about, you create liars. And I'm like, wasn't lying the sin? And so like that's kind of like things that I would like try to like verbalize, and I was just like, well, it's just because you don't talk about it. And so because you don't talk about it, like I don't know if it's right or wrong, or like I feel like it's wrong, and I feel like that's also why I talk about it so much, because I'm like, I didn't hear it a lot growing up.
Yeah, and I you're right. I think it, like, in the story, like just the absence of it, it's not even like a possibility in everybody else's mind.
Right?
Yeah, and like that's threatening within itself.
Yeah, it's just like for people who aren't queer, a heteronormative society, they don't bat an eye. For people who are, it's so harmful. Yeah. And it's just like, it's like things that you don't have to think about, but we unfortunately do.
Like one of the things is Yoli's mom kind of being so oblivious to it, where she's just like where she thinks that Yoli is like seeing a boy, so she's all like, you know what, you and the neighbor girl, you guys are gonna walk home every night, or every day. You guys are gonna walk to school and come back. And then I was like, the mom thought she did something. Dude, she ate. And Yoli she thought she ate. Yeah, she thought she was cooking.
Yoli was like, okay, no. Just like, whatever you want, by mom. Me. Sure. But yeah, the mom being oblivious about it, because like we mentioned, like that's literally not an assumption until it starts to become like there comes a point where you can't hide it. Yeah. And it's just like, it just comes out no matter how hard you try to suppress it.
Yeah. And then I guess one of the last things about self-exploration, just being a quote unquote bad Latino character, Mari like smokes weed and she doesn't get good grades. And, a lot of the times that can be a stereotype of Latino high school dropouts and Latinos being lazy at school or not good at school and turning to drugs and gang life. But this movie showcases that, but showcases what's under that and what can cause a character to do these things. And, I think part of it is the fact that Mari wasn't documented and that she had no hope. Like you see it, she doesn't think she's going to go to college. It's not even in her mind. She's like, so why try it?
Yeah.
Yoli comes and is like, well, actually you can, like, we'll figure it out later. Like, just prep yourself. If you don't want to do it then you make that decision then. But right now, like, let's build up so that you can do it. So
yeah, and like literally the way that Yoli gets Mari to start to care about school is she keeps feeding her the idea of like, wouldn't it be the biggest fuck you to the administrative office if like you were a good student? So that's like kind of, I think you had mentioned it earlier, of like Yoli knows how to, they know how to talk to each other and like how to, they like speak each other's language, quote unquote. But yeah.
Beautiful. Moving on to the next theme.
Yeah. So the next theme is money/success. Like we mentioned before, both girls and the families are in survival mode. So they're attempting very different methods to be financially successful.
One of the themes about like success and money for a lot of low-income Latino students is to go to college. Because, and I think this movie represents it really good, it means going to college means making it out of where you grew up, which is a big step. It means it's a different kind of stress. You're no longer stressed about these other things. You're stressed about academics, and it's a privilege to be stressed out by academics. So that's kind of what success means to Yoli, making it out. And I think that's very much instilled in her from her dad, which is like, he explicitly says like, I want you to make it out of here. Yeah. Like, that's why I sacrifice so much, is so that you make it out of here. And I feel like that's just such a common thing that gets placed upon Latino quote unquote high achievers. It's like, make it out of here. That's how you're going to be successful. Go to college. Blah, 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 blah. And it works. But sometimes it's also not what people want. Not everybody needs to go to college. So yeah, that was like one of the things. And like, I guess like contrasting with Mari's dream of success, which it doesn't really go into it, but like she would like love to visit her grandma back in Mexico and just live a quiet life where they, you know, cherish the little things. She said that her grandma would make tortas de frijoles and queso, and that was enough for her. Yeah.
So they're like very similar desires, very different approaches and perspectives. I think when it comes to money slash success.
And again, I think it is also going back to like Mari being undocumented and Yoli being first gen, where Yoli has a privilege of being first generation and born in the U.S. and be able to kind of have these like given privileges of being able to pursue higher education, while Mari doesn't think that's a path for her.
Yeah, definitely. And then so the last theme is queerness, but like we mentioned before, early queerness, kind of like the first time you experience that spark. You know, like I mentioned, there comes a point in people's queer journey where they, no matter how hard, try to suppress it, can't. It'll shine through. No matter how hard you think you're being slick, you're not. At least in my experience. Sorry, I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm projecting. And so, like we mentioned before, homophobia is not in your face, but the concerns revolving around it show in very subtle ways. And so the way that queerness is explored in these two characters who aren't really addressing that part of their desires is through literal sexual frustrations / aggressions. Like they get kind of vocally aggressive with each other when they're frustrated because they don't know how to vocalize it, and they don't know how to deal with what they're feeling, or they're very avoidant about it. And I think there's one time where Yoli tries to talk about it with Mari, like, hey, like we had a very extremely intimate moment the other day and we're just acting like that didn't happen. And Mari's like, well, you're making a big deal out of nothing.
But also because Mari had like, she was all dealing with stuff in the background. Yeah. So that also contributed to. Yeah.
Because Yoli was very much in La La Land during that moment, but Mari was still.
She gets hit by the real world.
Yeah. So, yeah, I personally do like the way that queerness was tackled in this, but you have.
Yeah, I was looking on Reddit and just to see what people were saying, and it was like this. It was like a queer community. Like, hey, if you guys haven't checked this out, check it out. So I guess kind of like what you were talking about with YouTube. Yeah. Like those communities where it's like, hey, like check this out, guys. Like, you know, just everybody helping each other out. And one of the comments was, they were like, I felt like it wasn't gay enough, which I feel like wasn't the purpose of this film. So
I agree.
What are your thoughts?
The first time I watched it, I kind of had that feeling too, because I was just like,
it's not that his old Reddit account.
Imagine.
Not enough kissing.
Where is the kiss? But no, actually, like we're joking about that, but that was one of the things that I thought about was the fact that they didn't kiss, because I was like, I want to see kissing.
No, but just like seeing like physical affection as something normal between
that. Yeah. And because in the media, I don't know too much of the history about this, but this is definitely a topic that I would love to explore and learn about, is the depictions of physical intimacy with queer characters in the media, in films and stuff like that. Like I remember, I don't know if anybody has watched The Fosters on ABC Family, but there's these characters, I think they're like 12-year-old boys, and they kiss, and it was the biggest deal ever. Like people were like very upset about it. Other people who obviously the show's made for were very like fun about it, and like it was just like this very big moment. And so there's just like, because there's so much stigmatism around kisses between queer couples in the media. And I mean, we're going to do an episode on Generation, but because this specific part like talks about this, there's a scene in the show called Generation, which you should totally watch, where two male characters kiss for a really long time, like really heated kiss. And I was watching the behind the scenes podcast that they have for that, and the creator was like, we did that because it's so stigmatized for queer characters to kiss. So they're like, so we wanted to make it so that you saw that they kiss and you didn't miss that they kiss, and you saw their tongue and you saw like a whole bunch of like fiery feelings and stuff like that. Cause like that kiss is literally like 30 seconds long. Yeah.
Cause if it doesn't happen like that, it's not ever going to get normalized in society. It's like people are still going to be squeamish about it.
And it wasn't sexualized the way that kiss was shot or anything like that. And I feel like that's a lot of people's argument, is like it's sexualized or it's like fetishized, but it's like
little kids kiss all the time in shows and TV. Shows and TV, films and TV.
So that was one of my things. Sorry to like that was
a whole tangent. Go ahead.
But to like circle back on like that was one of the things that I thought. I was just like, why didn't they kiss? Like was like, and then I had, because at the time was learning about queer baiting and stuff like that. So I was just like, what's this, a queer bait or blah, blah, blah. But now as I watch it with, you know, the perspective that I have now, I'm like, this was not queer baiting. This was very real.
Yeah. And I think it's just the fact that you were like starved of this, seeing this on film or TV, that you were like, where the hell is it? Yeah. But now that it's getting a little bit more commonplace, you're like, this is a story that like also needed to be told. Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen many like it. So the fact that, I mean, the critique of like, is it gay enough? It's like, well, that's not what it's about necessarily.
It's a different stage.
Yeah, it's a very different stage of the queer journey. So a little bit of lore on the film is written and directed by Aurora Guerrero, who is a queer filmmaker from San Francisco. So this movie was funded entirely through a Kickstarter with a budget of $80,000, which is not a lot, I don't think.
I think like low, like that's like micro budget, like not even low budget. It's like micro.
Yeah, and so the circumstance that they found themselves needing to do a Kickstarter was because the pre-production started during the economic crash of 2008. Yeah. So they were like, well, nothing's going to fund this, like blah, blah, blah. So they did a Kickstarter, and that's how they got their whole budget. Yeah. And then so they chose to film it in Huntington Park, and they formed relationships with the locals there, and the locals helped them a lot with like food and like locations to set up base camp and like a whole bunch of stuff. So it was just a very community involved project, which is why I also have so much respect for it as well.
Yeah, I think she had a really great quote where it was like, she lived in Huntington Park. She said that I believe that's one of the first places she went after coming to LA. And she was like, I didn't want to be like these other researchers or like these researchers that come into a community of color, into a low income community, get the research and then buy, never to be seen again, just profit off of it. She's like, I wanted this to be a huge community thing, and it very much was.
Yeah. So I literally bow down to Aurora Guerrero. I'm like, damn.
Especially with a budget of $80K, like you can see it through the quote unquote visuals, because it's not like a big Hollywood looking movie, but I think it adds to it so much.
Yeah.
It felt like I could have gone around out in this time and like used my camera. And I mean, it goes to show that like audio over camera quality,
story, script, characters over the cinema camera that you're using. Like nobody gives. People give a fuck, but like at the end of the day, the story is what made this movie so memorable, not the cool like lenses and shit.
The actress who was from SELA, which one of the actresses who played?
I think Yoli was originally from SELA. The other one was born in East LA but grew up around SELA, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of the extras were from Southeast LA. Huntington Park High School, which where I ran a lot of track meets. Grease was filmed there too, actually. If you know some of Grease. Yeah, I mean, it's so, I guess it's just so like LA Latino, but it's also a lot like very much Southeast LA. Like whenever I heard anyone talk or just like some of the background, I was like, these fools, especially like the twins too, like the way they talked, I was like, yes, talk like that.
And that's something that Aurora Guerrero talked about a lot in the making of the film, is like she wanted to bring authenticity to it. So it was like an open casting call of just like people who were from Southeast LA, even if they've never acted before, like come on and audition and like be a background character and give your input on our dialogue and stuff like that. So that's how she was able to get authenticity.
I was taking notes while and I put, so real, this is the Mexicans I know.
Real.
But yeah, she had, you said she had a lot of activists also involved in the production, a lot of activists from Southeast LA. And she made a very good point. She first wanted to film it in San Francisco, but she saw that it was way too expensive. So she's all like, well, my next choice is Huntington Park, cheaper, and that's also where she grew. And she's all like, she grew very fond of it, and it reminded her of home where she grew up. And yeah, she's all like, in a lot of Chicano film, East LA is shown through and through, but there's an area that is neglected a lot of the time, which is Southeast LA, where I believe the articles that I read said it's 98% Mexican. So she's all like, the activist who helped her was like, if you guys don't know this, the city of Bell, a long time ago, the mayor was stealing the tax money of the residents, and it was this huge thing. They stole so much money, and the activist was like, yeah, stuff like that wouldn't happen in the city of Bell, which is part of Southeast LA, if people knew that we existed, that this part of LA existed. So just stuff like that was like great to see, and like, internships, and like it also says right there. Yeah.
So one of the biggest thing that I loved about the way that this film was made was because Aurora Guerrero had such an attitude of making sure that it was a collaborative project and
that people could benefit from it.
People could benefit from it. She's like Alan said, that she had mentioned she didn't want to just pop in, use the resources and then dip. She became a resource for the people of Southeast LA. So she used a very small crew of 35 to 40 people, some of which were interns and some of which were first or second time feature length crew members. And if you don't know what a feature length is, it's the 90-minute movie that, working on one is really hard. I haven't worked on one yet, but I've worked on shorts and I'm like, God damn. But like, so she made it a space where people who wanted to get experience and wanted to like boost their resume could work on her film. And so she, along with the activists that she was working with, also offered kind of like this mentorship program through the making of this film, where they would go out and spread the word to Southeast LA youth and tell them, like, if you're interested in filmmaking, come on the set and we'll pair you with a mentor that's a department head, and we'll just like...
I missed the fucking memo. No, because I was like, well, I would have been 11 when this came out, beginning my filmmaking wannabe career. No, but that's what I was thinking while watching this. I was like, why later in my life, I heard about this movie from other SELA filmmakers. They're like, they praise this movie, rightfully so. But before that, I hadn't heard about it. And I kept on thinking to myself, why had I never heard about this? And I was like, oh, because it's lesbians. Because it's about lesbians. And I think that was like probably a big thing why this movie probably didn't get a lot of press, because I'm wondering like, why didn't I feel like my mom's always playing Univision or this or that, and they're always showcasing things that are happening in Southeast LA and like these communities. I'm like, why wasn't it there? And I'm afraid to say it might have been because of that.
Yeah, and I think in that same article that you were referencing about Aurora Guerrero and her talking about the production, is that she said that her work focuses a lot on highlighting invisible things. So like invisible locations like Southeast LA, or invisible people, quote unquote invisible people, like the queer people, and like bringing that to light. And so, you know, that's just goes to say like that is a reflection of like, you know, if you don't talk about it, then it's not there. So that's I feel like that did have a lot to do with it. But yeah, I feel like the more I learn about how Aurora Guerrero made this film, I'm like, that's the kind of filmmaker I want to be. 100%.
I mean, going back to it, I feel like there's a lot of things I want to say, but this movie felt like it could have been an LFTA production. Like
the way the approach,
the approach, the low budgetness of it. And I one of the first thoughts that I had about it was like, this feels like a student film in the best way possible, where it's like still really good, but like there might be like mistakes here and there, but like that's not what it's about. It's about the strong story and like having people learn. Like you said, she brought people on to learn. Like this was people's first or second feature film.
And literally that's literally why I have so much respect for her, because I feel like so many people and
like my vision.
They're just like my vision, or they're just like trying to make it all about like them, their growth and stuff like that. But Aurora Guerrero was no, let's, if you're interested in filmmaking, come on my set, like learn a thing or two, which I would have loved to have been on this set. Oh my God, I feel like that would have been so awesome. But last little bits about Aurora Guerrero is that this story, according to her, is autobiographically inspired. And so there was that topic that she would talk about, like whether or not she should have talked about queerness in those early stages of like this. And so a quote that she said was, "I think many people could relate to the story of a censored friendship." And I was like, that was real as fuck.
That's real as fuck.
That's real as fuck.
Yeah. No, I think I read this article, which was, I guess, like from Sundance, and it gave so much insight. I might put the link down in the bio below so you guys can do your reading, because it's really good. One of the last things I want to say about one of the quotes that really stood out to me and that was like really good, Southeast LA representation, and I was like, that's really good. And I think represents the community very well, or just the area. The quote is, I think she when she's first meeting Mari, and she's like, "I hope you really like Huntington Park." She's like, "Sometimes it smells like pan dulce, but sometimes it smells like chemicals."
Ooh.
And that's a big thing about Southeast LA, is that it's an area with a lot of environmental racism, because we are around a lot of industry, a lot of industrial places, and these companies make their profit, they leave, and they leave behind chemicals and stuff that oozes out into the air. There was this like plant, there was this battery factory that they packed their bags, they went bankrupt, left, and there's still particles still flying. I know that there had been another Sundance movie about this airplane that passed over a school in Cudahy that dropped jet fuel on them, and the airlines were never held responsible. That happened recently. That happened like maybe the pandemic, or like right before the pandemic. When? 2018, 2019.
Jesus Christ.
And like this stuff happens. I believe the school that me and Albert went to, it was like radioactive for a very long time, or like before they built the school, that area was radioactive, and then they built a school on top of it. So it's an issue that's very prominent in Southeast LA, and I'm glad that they were able to put it in the movie, even if it was just a little line.
Dang, I did not know that. Like I remember that quote, And then I was like, oh, that's an interesting quote, but I'm glad that you're speaking about it on this platform.
Thank you.
Exploring it. And then last thing I'll say about the world, which we did kind of touch upon, but there's this quote on this website called Pop Matters that kind of like explains the world building. And it says, though worries about prejudice aren't vocalized in the movie, the atmosphere that Guerrero has created makes it apparent that the pair are stepping into socially dangerous territory. And I was like, bars. I was like, exactly. Yeah. And so that I feel like is what the movie is about.
Yeah.
That like sums it up perfectly. That, you know, they are in this very slippery territory, but they are able to still be friends and still learn from each other and take away from each other. And at the end, well, I won't give a spoiler, but you know, they learned a lot from each other.
It's very good.
Yeah.
One last thing I have to say. Lesbians and them laying down together.
Bro, that part.
Well, not that scene specifically, but when they're like on top of the car.
Oh,
I feel like that, like a lot of the queer media that I've seen, they're always just like super close.
We just like to lay.
But also that one scene, I'm like.
That scene, dude, I was like.
Jaw on the floor.
Dude, I was like.
Jaw on the floor.
Oh my God. So if you want to know what we're referencing, you should watch Mosquita y Mari.
It is worth the $4. And if all the stuff that we said about it and the creator didn't convince you to support them, like this money is probably going to go, a lot of the money is going to go to them. Support them.
Yes.
You know, she did a lot for the community and for this film, and it means a lot to a lot of people. So go support it.
Go support the film. And I think we're going towards the end of the podcast, but we do like to end our podcast with a Latino artist recommendation, which we completely missed last week.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you guys stayed all the way to the end of the episode and nothing happened. I'm so sorry.
We were like, okay, bye. And then I think a day later, I texted Alan. I was like, dude, we forgot. I was like, oh my God.
Not today, though.
Not today. So I think it's my turn. Right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So my Latino artist recommendation of the week is in the theme of LA portrayals, but is going to be Katsu Oso. So Katsu Oso is kind of like this pop artist that does what is known as bedroom pop, kind of like these lovey songs that have a really nice and gentle beat to them. And I've been listening to a lot of his most recent stuff, and it's really, really cute. Like, it's a really, really good music. I feel like it's a very much like happy feeling type of music, and everything just makes me feel calm and at peace and in love. And I'm like, wow, this is so
what
good.
We need in this world,
right? I'm like, I have literally, I think I was just like listening to his latest singles and stuff like that. And I was like, add to library. Like, it's so good. So if you have not checked out Katsu Oso, you definitely should.
Yes. Thank you. And with that, thank you everybody so much for listening and coming back for episode 14 of the podcast. We appreciate it very much. I'm going to go ahead and do some housekeeping real quick before we take off. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe if you are watching on YouTube. If you are listening on an audio podcast platform, go ahead and give us a rating and a good review. We would appreciate it so much. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok at HandMeDownPod. And with that, Natalia, I think we are out.
We're out. Plays out.
Bye.
The Hand Me Down podcast is produced and hosted by Natalia Delgado and Alan Gallardo. This episode was edited by Alan Gallardo, and the social media clips are edited by Natalia Delgado. And I'm the associate producer, Milena Ortega. We'll see you next week.